Recording is now live. All right. And welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Imperial Valley Desert Museum and the last episode in our Surviving Extremes Be Red Cross Ready program. For those of you just joining us, you're a little late to the game, but nonetheless, you're coming in at a great one here because yesterday was one of our first days hitting triple digits in the Imperial Valley. And most appropriately, today's subject is that of how to survive and prepare yourself for heat waves. We are very happy and very glad to welcome back our partners, the American Red Cross, who have volunteered their time and their energies to provide their expertise to your audiences on this important matter. The Imperial Valley is a land of extremes, be that with the forces at work underfoot, the forces at work around us, or just the ambient temperature all around us as well, as we are now certainly experiencing just on the cusp of summer. And in this land of extremes, knowing the right tools, the tricks, and the procedures to make sure you and others around you stay safe are absolutely essential to navigating and enjoying and making the most of this incredible area. And here at the Imperial Valley Desert Museum, that is all what we are all about, is about preserving, interpreting, and celebrating the deserts of Southern California safely and responsibly. Now, our museum is actually open, so if you are not familiar with us and this is your first introduction to us, great way to get started, but please do come on down and visit us in person. Our facility is located in Ocotillo, California. If you're in downtown El Centro or in Imperial Valley, we're only about 25 minutes away from you. If you're coming to us from San Diego, we're only 90 minutes out, and a great way to come on out and explore these deserts and get out of the city for a little while. Our hours are Wednesday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we have some great exhibits, as you can see behind me, and some great programming as you're about to enjoy here today. So with that in mind, I would like to take the time to turn over and introduce our speaker and partners for this event, starting with Sarah Lise Sandoval. Sarah Lise?
Thank you, Dr. Partner, for having us. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Sarah Lise Sandoval. I'm the preparedness lead from Imperial County's American Red Cross. Today, you will learn how to stay safe for heat waves and things that you and your household can do to prepare for that. Our guest speaker for today is Ray Rogers. Ray is a retired Navy chief and aerospace engineer. He's in his fourth year as a volunteer with the American Red Cross, working in disaster response and preparedness. He's a leader within our disaster action team, which responds to daily local home fires and other local disasters as well. Thank you, Ray Rogers, for being here with us today. So I'll pass it on to Ray Rogers.
Hey, nice to be here. This kind of stuff I really enjoy doing. I'm going to pause a moment while I share my screen so that you can see what I'm all about. Here we go. And I'm going to turn off my video so you won't see that in the background now. So, heat wave preparedness. Some of these notes here that you should kind of stay aware of. You on the computer, your cursor over the Zoom screen, select chat. That's a way to do things. Please keep your microphone muted and your camera off. Again, it's more of a bandwidth thing for everybody involved. And on your phone, you tap the screen. There's usually a spot for more and select chat. And then if the speaker's video is interfering, which it shouldn't, since I turned it off, you shouldn't even see anything from me. But you can pick active speaker instead of gallery, and that makes it easier for you to see stuff. Okay, so we'll roll on. Again, see, there's my happy and smiling face in my Red Cross disaster action team vest. It's one of my favorite things to do is put on my vest and go help people. So we're going to talk about extreme heat today. Well, that's a prolonged period of high heat and humidity and humidity and warm overnight temperatures. As many of you probably already know, that's kind of what the Imperial Valley is about. Extreme heat for several months at a time. and it won't cool off at night. That's one of the things that's a big deal. We've been getting new records year after year. And we present this all over Southern California. So you can kind of see some of the things from the general area. Santa Ana, 110 degrees is the new record. There's record after record after record. Santa Ana, Riverside, Lake Elsinore, local to you, Borrego, a little north. Campo is just inland from you a bit. I mean, just ocean side from you a bit, still inland. 108 degrees. These are one after another of new records last year. Chino, 120 today. That was I'm not sure when today was, I'm sorry. 118 degrees in Ontario. That's a little, those are inland and north of San Diego. So a big deal, record after record. So we got to pay attention to this. This is getting to be every place you go. It's not just in Imperial Valley. So the way to handle this is to be aware of heat waves. And obviously, even in Imperial Valley, it's not always as hot as it is some days. So pay attention. Be aware of upcoming temperature changes. So, just catch either the radio or the television weather and see what the temperature is going to be tomorrow. Temperature heat index. And if you're not familiar with a heat index, that's a combination of humidity and heat. And then we're going to talk about some heat safety precautions today and your emergency disaster kit. And that's a critical thing. One of the problems in heat disasters is power outages. Same thing that happens nowadays with fires, even before when you get high winds, they're shutting off the power long before the fire gets to it. Check on your neighbors. Elderly, young, sick, overweight, those people all have struggles in this environment. Choose some places to go. There's often cool centers and schools, libraries, and things like that. First aid. Getting trained in first aid is absolutely the best thing you can do. Red Cross offers that kind of training, and it's easy to get. So extreme heat alerts. There's 3 levels of extreme heat alerts. A watch is excessive heat for 22 to 72 hours. It's possible. So you be ready, you monitor your updates, pay attention to what's going on. An advisory is forecasted heat index of 100 degrees or higher. Start taking precautions. Get ready for heat illnesses. Be kind of prepared for this. And we're going to talk about some of the things you can do to be ready for it here in a few minutes. Warning. That means it's on. Forecasted heat index of 105 or higher. Immediate precautions are needed, and serious heat illnesses are definitively possible. So extreme heat. Our bodies can't keep cool. We get heat-related illnesses. We're going to talk about those in more detail. So planning and preparation. So enhance, if you already have a go bag or an emergency kit, be sure that it's got electrolyte water or drinks and ice packs that you can keep in your freezer, and then they'll help keep whatever it is that you're using cool, as well as cool you are. Tailor your plan. Again, identify cooling zones, so schools. But I know occasionally I go to the mall when it's hot. Without attempting to like move into the mall, but it's a nice place to go cool off when things are hot. I've never had air conditioning until just recently, so that's a San Diego thing. Prepare for power outages, and there's all kinds of preps you can do for power outages, whether it's generators or small solar charging setups to keep your cell phones and things like that charged. Stay informed. Talked about that a couple of times now. Monitor the temperature and heat index. Listen for updates. Radios and television both work well for that. So staying safe. You got a numbered list. As long as you got a numbered list, you can do anything. Keep cool. Stay in air conditioning. Boy, if you've got that as an option, that's the way to do it. And it's almost impossible to do in the Imperial Valley and the Mojave without staying in air conditioning. Unless you're way used to it, you can handle shade. Loose fitting, lightweight clothes, and long sleeves work better if you're outside because it keeps the sun off you and you don't heat up as much. But it needs to be loose fitting, obviously not tight clothes because that doesn't help much. Cool baths and showers are an option, and we'll talk about this in relation to sickness. This is just when you're not sick and you're just trying to kind of take care of yourself. Cool baths and cool showers are nice. Avoid using the stove and the oven. You have to crank on the oven. That's not going to help when it's 110 out. So there are other ways to do it, and there are much simpler ways to handle it. And if you really want to bake, you do it at night. Do it very early in the morning, like lots of things. Like lots of people work early in the morning outside. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. That was my favorite chant when I was a Boy Scout leader. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Except for Joe. That's a different story. Joe kind of drank all of his water the first day and he had a lot of water. So more than usual. Electrolyte drinks are part of this, and we'll talk a little bit about there are different ways to handle electrolyte drinks. You have to actually pay attention to the label. Some things tell you that they're good for hydration, electrolytes, and if you don't read the label, you don't know that they're not really. And some things are better than others. So postpone outdoor activities or do them early. You know, morning is a nice time to do everything. Sunscreen, wide-brimmed hats on loose-fitting clothing. You'll probably see me talk about this a couple of more times. Loose-fitting clothing. Frequent breaks. It's surprising. Just sitting down cools you off. And if you're overheated, we'll talk about some of this. You don't always want to have cold liquids when you're overheated. Avoid the peak hours. Okay, so 3 o'clock in the afternoon is not the time to go for a run. That's a different Joe that did that. Stay connected, monitor the weather, check on and assist others, check on your pets. If you've got choices, don't be alone. You know that if there's nobody that knows that you're having problems, it goes from a problem to much worse. If you've got the ability to check on your neighbors and you know who those neighbors that we talked about earlier are, you know, people who are older, people who are in ill health for some other reason besides age, be aware of them and, you know, go knock on the door and make sure they're okay. Call them as the case may be. This is the era of cell phones. Everybody has a phone. It's usually on them now. Pets. Okay, I'm going to talk about this also a couple of more times, but be aware that your pets need to have water, and some of them are pickier than others. Obviously, cats are much pickier than dogs, but be sure your pets, whatever kind of pets you have enough water and have it available. You're going to be aware of heat illnesses. When we get done with this, you'll be able to recognize the signs and you'll know how to treat them. Key thing is if you avoid overheating, you're avoiding heat illnesses in the first place. So staying safe during extreme heat. What are some things you can do to stay safe during extreme heat? We talked about this already. Keep cool. Fans are miracle tools. I tell you, miracle tools. We have overhead fans in our house and in every room we can get it in, and I'm about to upgrade my wife's fan in her artist studio. Used to be her office, now it's her artist studio, and she needs new lighting, so I'm going to get a fan in my office. I'm looking forward to that. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Limit outdoor activities, stay connected, stay aware. All right, heat cramps. This is the first stage of heat sicknesses. Muscle pain, spasms, arm, legs, or stomach. It happens all over. If you're out doing things, and you're getting cramping, whether you're doing, they're showing athletes here, but it happens to all of us. We get in a spot where we're out doing things, we're walking a bit in the heat, and it's easy to get to heat cramps. If we deal with heat cramps and handle them, then we don't get to heat exhaustion. Heat exhaustion has a lot of symptoms, but it's a second stage. And if you've gone from cramping to exhaustion, you want to stop that as fast as you can, because nothing gets better after that. All right, so if you're faint, dizzy, heavy sweating, cool, pale, clammy skin, clammy, so it's damp. And we're going to talk about that. But if it's damp and it starts feeling cool, that's part of a sign of heat exhaustion. Elevated heart rate and breathing. So now we're into the dangerous things. Elevated heart rate and breathing means that your internal organs are starting to react to the heat. Nausea. Obviously, if you've got nausea, it's hard to do other things. It's hard to take care of yourself. Weakness or fatigue kind of follows on, again, heat cramps, heat exhaustion. Your entire body can be affected. It's no longer just your muscles. Heat stroke, third stage. You get to heat stroke, things are getting pretty ugly. And things happen here that don't happen. Throbbing headache. So you've gone from faint or dizzy to really painful headache. You're not sweating. Now your skin is no longer clammy because you're not sweating. And that's the worst thing, because that's your body's method of cooling. Heavy sweating, no sweating, you're not cooling off anymore. Your body temperature is above 103 degrees. We all know that if our, when we're ill, if our body temperature gets high, that can damage our internal organs. Red hot skin. Again, we've gone from cool to hot. So third stage of in getting to heat stroke. Rapid, shallow breathing, vomiting, not just nausea, but vomiting. Confusion, loss of consciousness, ties with faint or dizzy. You're on to your next thing. Again, permanent damage to vital organs, including your brain. So kind of trying to stop ourselves at heat cramps and realizing we need to take care of ourselves is much better, or not even getting to the first stage of this by caring for ourselves in the first place. Recognizing it when we have to help other people is what this is more about for you, because you're never going to let this happen to you, because you've been here and listened to me yap for an hour and seen these wonderful slides. You're never going to let it happen. So how to treat it when you find this. The cramps, simple stuff. Stop, take a break, get in a cool place, sit in the shade if you're outside away from things. Get a more cool place, gently stretch and massage the muscles. Sip, not guzzle, not drink a lot, sip electrolyte drinks. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. So there's a little note over there that says look for sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Those are the three things that you would like to see in an electrolyte drink. Some of them only have sodium. That's a very common thing. You really want to get potassium and magnesium in there, and there'll be some, there'll be a chemical goes with it. It'll be potassium or magnesium calcite and a couple of other things, but it'll have those words mixed in. Your body will handle that, and it will use the potassium. You need potassium and you need magnesium. You also need sodium. Even if you're like me and you're on generally a low sodium diet because you have heart issues, you still want to have sodium when you're in heat. Your body is, when you're sweating, you're getting a lot of salts out, and sodium being the largest portion of salt. So Pedialyte, that thing that was for kids. There's a great ad I've seen recently where dad is sitting down in front of the refrigerator drinking Pedialyte, and his child catches him and is all upset because he's drinking her Pedialyte. But it's a really handy thing, and it's got a good shelf life, so you can keep it. Vitalite is another example that used to be called Ducanade. I like the old name better, but Vitalite's and it's a really well balanced. They used to say Dr. Gucklin scraped the sweat off of athletes and bottled it, but I don't really really think that's what he did. But and it tastes much better than it did back in the day. But it is really a good one. There are lots of others. I'm not trying to promote these two things. I just happen to know they both work. So heat exhaustion. Again, move to a cool place. Loosen clothing. Apply wet, cool towels. Now this changes later. Only in heat exhaustion and even well with cramping, because you can cool yourself down, cool wet towels will help. Again, sip electrolyte drinks. No chugging. Chugging bad, sipping good. Heat stroke. Call 911. This is no longer something that's treatable by you at home. You can do things to help, which is primarily cool them down. And I don't mean, you notice the cool wet towels are no longer on the list, and neither is sipping drinks. No fluids, and you don't want to cool them down too fast. You want to get them in a cool place and let their body start to cool down while you're waiting for an ambulance to come and pick them up and treat them and take them to ER. This is heat stroke is not something that, unless you have nothing else you can do, you don't want to be the one doing all the treating, and all you can do is cool them down. There's more to be had in a first aid class. We're not going to go into any more depth than that. Take a first aid class. That's one of my favorite things, and I retake. Even if you've taken a first aid class, you can retake them. Pet safety. Get them fresh water and shade. Limit their exercise. You know, I've got my grand dog visiting me, and my grand dog is at 8 years old still acts like a puppy and runs up and down and does everything. And she lives in Yuma, so you know, being outside of something, there's a bit of care involved in that. Lots of water available. Don't leave them or anybody else in a car. Now, I think I passed that without saying it earlier. Do not leave pets or people in a car in the heat, and pay attention to other people leaving pets and animals in the heat here. Now, there are times when that's not a thing. If it's a cool morning, don't get wrapped around the axle. But in the heat of the day, don't let it happen. Don't do it. Air conditioning on at home is just fantastic. Again, not everybody has air conditioning all the time, but it is, if you've got that available, use it. You see my note over here. Cats don't get as thirsty as dogs. They don't have a well-developed sense of thirst. So we all know cats are picky. They're actually teaching us to be ready for having teenagers later in our life. But they still need water, even though they're not so sure they do. They like running water and fresh water. So the trick is, you know, get fresh water for the cat and then give it to the dog when the cat doesn't drink it all. But, you know, coax your cat to drink, help them get through that and get water. They're not killing mice and other animals, so they're not getting nearly enough liquids. Hey, if your cat gets to be a hunter, you may not have to worry about this as much. Okay, so big things. Preparing your house, covering your windows. There's all kinds of things you can do to cover your windows. Reflectors of all kinds, all sorts, Reflectacs, things like that you can buy at Home Depot. Insulating your house, getting your weather stripping up so that you're not letting the air conditioning out. You know, don't. You know, what do you think we're doing trying to cool the whole neighborhood? And attic fans. If you don't have an attic fan, get it. Where attic fans go, by the way, is on the downwind side of your house if you have a choice. You may or may not. If you don't have central air conditioning, get some window air conditioners in the room you intend to use the most. My father-in-law has an air conditioner on his living room because that's the only room they sit in the heat of the summer. They're in Maine, so it's very high humidity heat. Covering your windows is huge. Finding ways to cover the sun side windows, getting reflectors in there, not just your normal shades, but something that reflects the heat out. like I said, Reflectex and kind of thicker things. There's all kinds of stuff that you can get at Home Depot that'll do that, or at Lowe's, or at Ace Hardware, probably. So it's up to you. This is where this is the part. So write something you're gonna do. What are you gonna do to prepare yourself for this year's heat waves? So put one thing in the chat, and then we'll share.
And just to add to that there, Ray, we do have several folks watching here on Facebook. We are monitoring the chat in Facebook as well, so please do feel free to post your replies there, and we'll make sure it gets back to Ray here in Zoom, on Zoom as well. So please do leave your comments there if you'd like to respond, and we'll go from there.
I discovered a long time ago for myself that, you know, thinking about stuff and regurgitating it in a way that makes sense to me allows me to make commitments. And, you know, commitments to anything are important. Commitments to taking care of yourself this hot season is critical. Not just for you, but for your loved ones and your neighbors and your friends, your employees. Sometimes your employers, some of them can use the advice, some of them can't. That's another thing. Self-filling outdoor water tap for the dogs. Yes. And those are really easy because all they are is a float, and they're fantastic. You can also put kind of larger where you put a gallon of water and it siphons on the inside for your animals on the inside. Boy, if you got outside water, outside dogs, then you definitely have to have a self-filling outdoor water.
Yes, that was actually from me. I have a 2 dogs here, and I live on property in Ocotillo, and one of which is a husky. I like to joke a desert husky because she is very atypical, full of fur, but absolutely loves to sunbathe outside in the sand, probably a good 6 hours a day. And when she decides to wake up and stir, she'll go ahead and drink, you know, an entire bowl of water in a single sitting. So you do need to be alert, and part of it for me at least was just learning to recognize drinking patterns, when they tend to drink, how much they tend to drink, and then when I need to be ready to respond to it very quickly.
Good on you. Okay, so there's some other things, some resources. So get a kit. We actually, there's a preparedness booklet that has a lot of things that can go in a kit. Having a go bag is useful with kind of just basic things in it. Your identification, your important papers, having those kind of ready to go is useful. If you lose electricity, you may have to, get out of your house. So, and you don't want to be messing around for a long time. So having a go bag ready to go with basic supplies, radios and water and things like that is useful. Making a plan and being informed. The making a plan actually is much more about fires, but all of these things are available from Red Cross electronically these days. There's a Red Cross emergency app that's available. There were a couple of other apps in previous history, but you can download this either at the App Store or Google Play, and you can set it up to notify you in your area. You can also set it up for other areas. So if you have family someplace else that you kind of want to know what's going on in their environment, so you can take care of them or talk to them when they need it and coach them on the next step. You can set that up in the app. I know I have my brother and my sister who are much older than I am. I have their location set up in the app, so it notifies me when it's out of hand in Palm Springs or out on the coast. My sister out on the coast obviously doesn't have as many weather problems and emergency problems, but occasionally, in her case, it's fire. You can connect with us on all these places, all the normal places. You can connect with Red Cross. There are pages for Red Cross locally as well as the national pages and all the other normal stuff. Websites, redcross.org, Southern California, has information for our area. It's much more important, much more focused on our area than it is on other places, but we can get there. So and Homeland Security, natural disasters, water resources, flood preparedness. Now we're not worried about that now, but flash floods are a big deal, and you guys had that a few weeks ago. Emergency management agency and flood insurance program. Depending on where you live in the desert, you need to pay attention to whether you're in a flood zone or not. And it's always, that kind of stuff is kind of priced by the threat. So should be relatively inexpensive. Okay, we have ongoing volunteer opportunities with the Red Cross. Hot shots, install free smoke alarms, and educate the community on home fire safety. We also, once we kind of get through the worst of the pandemic here, we'll go back to doing events with installing smoke alarms. It's often mobile home parks, but any community can arrange for a group of us to come out. We'll get volunteers. We usually get the military folks to volunteer and as many other organizations. And we'll come out and install free smoke alarms in your house. The hot shots will do it, or we can do it as a group, community event. Blood delivery drivers. Right now, blood donations are down, but the amount of blood that is being used has not gone down. In fact, it may be going up. And so we're always struggling to have enough blood delivery drivers, which also kind of ties into, if you're available to donate blood, please do. Local disaster responders like me, there are all kinds of things to do. There's a disaster action team, which is a local team. I kind of take a 1 week a month when I'm just available all week along with my team. And when people have fires or other disasters happen, there are other things that happen, flooding and things like that. Oddly, even flooding that has nothing to do with the environment, has to do with fire hydrants and things like that. And we go out and help people who have had that. We get them, some money. We get them some resources. We get them kind of on track, and we hook them up with caseworkers who have all kinds of resources to help them. So this is a twofer. One, we need volunteers, but the other thing is, if you have somebody who's had a fire or had a personal disaster like that, have them get in touch with Red Cross if they haven't already. Service to the armed forces. A lot of you live in the El Centro catchment basin, but there's also a lot of volunteers a lot of veterans that need help. And the service to armed forces has always been one of our kind of Red Cross's biggest things that we do. In San Diego, we go to the local where they gather all the recruits on their way out and get them and their families kind of connected into our system so that we can help them if they have an emergency. So that's kind of gets to this. Join the Red Cross today. There's all kinds of volunteer opportunities. Those were only a very small selection of what's available. When big things happen, we need shelter workers and feeding and logistics, people to help drive supplies around. And my latest thing was to get qualified on the emergency vehicle that we can take out to any disaster, whether it's in our area or they're nationally, they're run by National Red Cross. So if they have a hurricane or a tornado disaster in the Midwest, we just take the vehicle out and deliver it to them and use it and help them, and they take it over and then we bring it back when it's done. there's just so many things that Red Cross does. It's Red Cross is over 90% volunteers, and the other 10% is kind of a selection of interns, like Sarah Lee's is, and employees and folks from AmeriCorps is another large group of people that work with us. Host a blood drive. As I said, the blood drives are critical, and we can host a blood drive anywhere. I mean, you can host a blood drive anywhere. We can show up and set it up and gather blood. It's critical. We're the national blood supply is running low. I talked about sound the alarm. So the hot shots can come out and do that. You can also do it yourself. You can call and get Red Cross to come out and advise you on your alarm systems. Not exactly sure how they're doing it currently. I usually do the big events as a participant, mind you. But right now we're in the midst of trying to educate 100,000 people and get them set up for home fire safety. I know my volunteering with Red Cross on this has got my fire safety much better. I have much better escape plans for my wife and I and my pets, and smoke alarms throughout my house. So, any further questions? Yes, sir.
Thanks, Ray. I have a few actually here, based off of what you're saying. So there's a long list, which I think which are all based off my experience living here in Imperial Valley, but also based on things that are happening or have happened in recent years. So hopefully you don't mind me going off a few of these here. First of all,
Nope.
You did mention cooling centers. I think that's an absolutely essential part out here, especially in Imperial County. Cooling centers are a must-have. There need to be known and designated locations where anybody can get out of the sun, go off and cool off, and do so safely. And the Imperial County does have a number of officially registered and designated cooling centers in towns across Imperial County. We're talking in every single town, there's at least one. And if you do happen to come out to Ocotillo, the Imperial Valley Desert Museum is one of those cooling centers. So if you need to get out of the sun for a little while, cool off, we have exhibits. You can sit down, watch a video, read some text, and play some interactives. Spend an hour or two just getting yourself ready to go back out there. It's very important to make sure you give yourself those pauses and those breaks. And Imperial County, the County of Imperial Health, I think actually has all those sites listed on their website. So you can just go out and find those resources and see which ones are closest to you. I would definitely encourage everybody to make sure that, especially as we're now officially in May here and looking ahead to these summer months, it's only going to get warmer. The other two questions I actually had here dealt both with pets and also with how to best prepare your household for the summer. So I hope you don't mind me asking, Ray. I'm going to start with pets as a dog owner myself. One big concern I always have, at least this time of year as we get warmer, is the ground itself underfoot for dogs. So obviously there's the ambient air temperature, but I think there's also the issue here of the temperature on the ground and the fact that we're fortunate enough to wear shoes, but our dogs, unless you buy them those booties, they're walking bare pads on the ground there. Can you comment at all about sidewalk heat and issues of just heat retention coming off the ground there?
Tell you the truth, I've read a few things, but I'm not an expert on that. The basics that I've always gotten is asphalt is, because it's black, it re-radiates heat badly and can hurt your animals' feet. Dirt and sidewalk are less critical because they're light and they're still hot, but dog pads are pretty tough. But again, I'm not an expert, so that is something that I can get back to you on.
Not a worry. I just figured I'd ask. I have done some research into this myself, and one thing I have seen is a general rule of thumb, a good way to test before you go outside with your pets, and while you're doing that sort of assessment of whether it's safe to go out at this time of day. And do remember, it does take some time for the earth to cool off, even if the sun's going down, even if the outside air temperatures dropped, that earth is still going to be radiating that heat. Uh, Easiest way to do this is just touch the pavement with the back of your hand for 7 seconds. So just put the back of your hand on the pavement there. And if you can't hold it for that 7 seconds, it's too hot. Easy way to tell and relatively minor, but obviously don't stick it around for that full 7 seconds if it's too much already. Um, the other question I had for you actually here, and this one actually occurred to me last year as well, and I think to several residents of Imperial Valley and especially in Ocotillo. Uh, Last summer, there was a big concern regarding power usage, especially during peak times due to the excessive demands and high heat temperatures. And we actually saw in Imperial Valley rolling blackouts and things like that at select times because of the strain on the grid. Uh, what advice can you give? What direction can you give for best preparing for a heat wave in the matter of energy saving alongside it? So, how can we blend those two so we find a happy medium where we are able to keep ourselves and our households cool, while at the same time perhaps not breaking the bank and causing rolling blackouts that would be incredibly counterproductive?
There's actually two, and one is if you've got any way, if you can afford the monthly payments in lieu of electricity bills, uh, get solar. It's your house, try and get solar. Uh, and that includes a battery bank, even though that's not one of the last time I got solar, I haven't got it yet on the house I'm in. I've only been here a couple of years, but my last one, I didn't get a battery bank because that was before the premiums that SDG&E now charges in the evening. And the battery bank can feed back and support your house when there are premium charges, so you're not using their excess, their expensive electricity. But the simplest and most important thing is almost always, whether it's winter or summer, is just don't be extreme in cooling or heating. So in the summer, keep the temperature up. Keep it to where you can safely deal with it. Obviously, you don't want it in the 90s, but if you can keep it in in the upper 70s or even low 80s, and you can live with that and stay hydrated and do the other things you need to do, that's going to be a lot less expensive, one, and two, it protects the grid. The more people that are doing that kind of thing, the less electricity we're using, the more likely the grid is to survive. Unfortunately, we can't fix everybody, but we can do our part, and that's always the case. Do you have any other suggestions?
That's actually pretty close to what I would have here as well. I was really monitor your energy usage. Here at the museum, actually, we have solar on half of our roof line, and that provides most of our day-to-day operations as well. So going off the grid, trying to be sustainable, I think you hit the nail on all the heads there. It can be a challenge. There's also, you could look at alternative if you're looking to move into a new house. If you have that opportunity, you'd always look at more energy efficient modes of constructions, ones that go from everything from traditional methods of house construction, which are more energy retentive, building underground to absorb that natural cooling factor. But that's going more and more extreme and less away from just simple household fixes, of course. So really, there's any degree. It just really depends on your degree of scale, I think. But you do see that there's a creativity here for application.
Yeah, and early in the presentation, we talked about reflective material on
Yes.
windows. I actually, I when I was in Yuma, I saw a couple of trailers in a RV kind of trailer park and they were probably snowbird trailers that they leave there in the summer. But one of them was all three sides that could possibly face the sun on the outside were covered with Reflectex. It might be a bit extreme, but Reflectex isn't overly expensive. There are a couple of times when, like, if you happen to have a refrigerator that's on an outside wall, finding ways to kind of keep the heat from radiating on things like that will help a lot with your energy usage. with my trailer, I can't even run the refrigerator if the sun's on that wall. I have to have something on the outside. I've tried all kinds of things, and Reflectex turns out to be the simplest. They have Velcro and Reflectex set up, so I just Velcro my Reflectex when I get in a hot environment.
Absolutely. And one thing as well, actually, you're getting all these and all this inspiration here going to me now. We're bouncing off each other. The other issue and the other solution here, of course, is even if you are already working towards energy efficiency, if you're already mindful of closing rooms to doors you're not in, if you're already turning off devices you're not using, there are still ways you can improve that on a relatively minor budget and impact. Things like replacing and upgrading older units to be more with more energy efficient models. One thing that's certainly a big one for that is older AC systems are terribly inefficient by comparison to the more modern models. And you can get a smaller unit that is a combination or just better at putting it out and using less. In fact, if you're wondering, well, that's great, how do I afford it? Do keep in mind that many of these local communities, including County of Imperial, have energy rebate programs specifically designed to help you upgrade your systems to be more energy efficient. So if you are interested in anything like this and you're wondering how you can pull it off, do consider local resources. You're not alone. We're all in this together, but especially on a county level, there are resources there to help you pull off these improvements to help the greater community and, of course, take care of yourself and your loved ones.
Any other questions?
Let me just take a look here on social media. So we have anybody through Facebook. I'm not seeing anyone, but what I will say, just if anybody is interested in that residential rebate program I was mentioning, if you are interested and you are from the area of Imperial County, I do apologize, I don't have the information for San Diego County in case we have anybody visiting there. But for Imperial County, what you're going to be looking for is IID and then the residential rebate program. That is a great starting point if you are interested in looking at ways to make your household more efficient and more productive in helping you weather these incredible extreme weather events.
Woohoo!
All right, and Sarah Lisa, I know you are been watching in the background there. Your experience, you are from out here and you've been living through a few summers, I'm sure. Any other experiences, any other insights, any other questions you might think that come up that do influence or reflect our way of life out here?
I would say to keep hydrated, of course, seeing as we're a very hot place area, we live in the desert, always hydrate yourself whenever you're outdoors, carry a water bottle with you. Don't be outside if it's too hot outside, avoid going outside. And of course, always have an emergency kit with you in your home. Water at your home in case there's a power outage, especially in the summer when electricity might be going on and off with the power outages. Try to maintain yourself. Try to keep emergency kit supply before keeping food and water available for you. And before that happens, of course, preparing before disaster strike.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah, let me spin off of that, Sarah Lise. One of the things that's always recommended in kind of basic emergency kit is 1 gallon of water per person per day.
absolutely.
In Imperial County in the summer, you might want to double that. And you know the water, you can lose water pressure if the power goes out at the pumps, your local pump station, and you won't have water. So having water available that is stored, you can buy 5-gallon things fairly inexpensive in a screw-on cap and replace them. By the way, you replace water every 6 months, so get fresh water now, and then at the end of the season before winter, use it to water plants. Don't waste it. And then put fresh water in there, and fresh chlorinated water will last 6 months in a sealed container.
Yes, and of course, if you happen to have pets, always remember them as well. Keep a gallon of water if possible for them as well, so they don't dehydrate too.
Yes, ma'am. Hydrate, 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 except for Joe.
And actually, to spin off of your spin-off there, Ray, I think we're going full circle here now. This is actually spurred a memory of an incident that I am familiar with. It's not one that I personally experienced, but it is one that I do know, and this is a real example, real case that happened here in Imperial Valley. Do not underestimate the effects of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. It is incredibly possible. We're not just talking going out and wandering in the desert miles away from civilization. There have been many instances, recognized instances, where search and rescue teams here in Imperial County have been sent out for individuals working in their own fields, working in their own backyards, who have become so disoriented, so lost and out of it that they've walked in the opposite direction away from help, and they are only at most a quarter or an eighth of a mile away from where they've lived their entire lives, and they are still going off the wrong direction, and then they're being found hours or sometimes much later than that, and it is an entirely preventable tragedy. So do please make sure this is survival. It is your health, it's your safety, and do not take it lightly. Make sure you take these precautions and follow the advice provided here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beckner, for having us here in these series of presentations. And thank you, Ray Rogers, for being here today as well.
Yeah.
And of course, thank you so much to both of you here at American Red Cross for all that you do, both for this incredible presentation series that we are very fortunate to host, which will be made available and is currently available on the museum's Facebook and YouTube channels for future use, but also for everything you do elsewhere. American Red Cross is an incredible instrumental part of life and services out here in Southern California. They need all the help they can get. So if you are interested in volunteering, providing blood, or anything else, I'm sure that these are, and I'm sure Sarah Lise would be happy to have you reach out to them and see where we can move next. Really cannot overstate how grateful we are and how important they are to this community. So once again, thank you so much. And we'll finish a few minutes early. Ray, thank you as well. And to all our visitors out there, we hope to see you soon. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Let's discuss this.